going to do something in this video that you have possibly seen me do at other times, and that is gush over the game design skills of Reiner Knizia, who is my favorite game designer bar none. In the past few years, I've done overview videos of Blue Lagoon, Babylonia, My City, and Llama, which I talked a lot about for an incredibly simple card game, and yet at heart, most of Knizia's designs are simple. He does this interesting mix of style that feels both old-fashioned and modern. Old-fashioned in the sense that the games that he designs create, for the most part, a highly interactive space where your choices directly affect what is available to other people. My City does not have that, along with older designs like Connections and Fits, but for the most part he creates this shared space where your choices are going to have ramifications both for you and for other players in terms of what's available to them, for places to go or things to take or what to buy or whatever it is. His games are modern in the sense that they feel new whenever you learn them. Lost Cities was really my entry point into modern game design in the early 2000s. That game is 21 years old, and yet it feels as new today as it did then. His style is timeless. It holds up really well, and that's mostly because the heart of the game comes down to you and what actions you take as the player. You imbue a lot of yourself into his games and express your own personality through your choices in his games. He makes it possible for you to do that. Possibly that's why I am attracted to his design so much, is that they're kind of this framework in which you, the player, get to place yourself inside of and shape the game to your personality. It's a really interesting style to see him express that in all these different ways over 30 years of game design. So I took the opportunity to highlight Whale Riders. This is a design coming out actually in 2021. This is being kickstarted by Grail Games right now in mid-2020. This is not a published game, as you see from the back of the box. There's no compensation for this. I just asked whether it would be possible to look at an advanced copy of the game, and Grail Games said yes, and I was happy to do it because Grail and Knizia, not to mention artist Vincent Dutray, have previously come out with new editions of Medici. Fantastic auction game, so good. King's Road, which was excerpted from the new games of Old Rome, and Yellow and Yangtze. It's a fantastic collaboration between Knizia and Dutray and Grail Games with the production design. So I was like, yes, I definitely want to look at Whale Riders. And so now you will too. Here are the components of Whale Riders set up and ready to play. Each of the 2 to 6 players is going to start in the Sun Port, travel down the coast to different ports, acquiring goods along the way. You get down to the Lobster Port, you turn around and you head back home. You are going to use the goods that you acquire to complete contracts that give you more coins to help fuel additional purchases that will allow you to complete even more contracts. You want to complete contracts because you get pearls for in-game scoring. You can also pick up other pearls along the way. And when you get back home to the Sunport, you are through with movement, and the only thing you can do at that point is buy the pearls here. And once these 7 tiles are gone, the game ends, and whoever has the most pearls wins. Whale Riders mimics other Knizia designs in that you are given a list of simple actions, 5 in this case, and on a turn you are going to do 2 actions, whether the same action or different ones, and that's it. One action available to you is to move your Whale Rider from one port to the next. You move continuously in one direction until you get to the end of the line, then you turn around and head back home. There's no jumping back and forth from one port to another. When you are at a port, an action that you can take is to purchase one of the tiles here at a cost of 0, 1, 2, or 3 coins. You buy a tile by paying the bank, and you put that tile in front of you. You want to acquire tiles in order to complete these contracts. These contracts would be hidden normally, but I'm showing them to you so you see what I have available, what I might be trying to get. At the end of your turn, in this case I've taken my 2 actions by moving and buying a tile. Tiles slide down, and then you go into the bag and draw something else as a replacement. There are a number of storm tiles in the bag, and that number is adjusted based on the player count. A storm tile cannot be acquired, it just gums up a space. So eventually, once all 3 of these tiles have been purchased, the storm tile will be down here, and then there is no more tiles that you can get for free. There are plenty of other tiles that are not storm tiles in the bag, so you get this mix of useless and useful tiles coming out to refill these spaces as the game progresses. My next turn, perhaps I travel down here, I spend 2 coins to buy this. I now have 3 slabs of tuna in order to complete this contract that I can do on my next turn. So I go in here, draw something else. Other people would be going, of course, taking their 2 turns. One action that you can take, third action available, aside from moving, aside from buying a tile, just take 1 coin. That's it. Maybe you're short money, you need to buy something. Maybe I take this coin for the future, and let's say I pick up these vases here. This comes down, reach in the bag, get something else. Oh, hey, this would be good for this, but there's not too many other shells on the board, so this might not be ideal. Let's say I want to take another action, which is to fulfill a contract. I have 3 hunks of tuna. Oh, actually, I can do this right now. I'll hand in these 3. I can pay with more if I want, but I don't get anything back. I will get 2 money immediately from the bank. I put this aside, and at the end of the game, I will score 2 pearls. I now have a second action available to me. Now I have 3 money. Let's spend that 3 money, and I'll get those shells. We'll build up towards this one as well. At the end of my turn, we refill the board, and I refill my hand until I have 3 cards in it. So these gray ones here, they don't need specific resources. This is just any 4 objects. I have 2 objects right here. This is any 3 tiles, no matter what is on the tile. If I acquire a pearl, well, pearl is worth a point on its own, just because at the end of the game, each pearl is worth 1 point. This card is worth 2 on its own. If I had these 2, I could hand in these 3 tiles and I lose 2 points to gain 2 points, but I get 4 money all at once. So, which that's better than spending 4 turns to get money. Sort of. It depends on what it costs me to get these pearls. The 5th action available to me, aside from moving, buying tiles, taking a coin, and fulfilling contracts. And when you fulfill contracts, you can fulfill as many as you want at one time. So maybe you want to hold off and do lots at once, but you often use the coins that you get from a contract to fuel future purchases. The 5th action available to you, you can discard any number of tile of contracts that you don't like, and at the end of your turn, you're going to draw replacements from the deck. More shells. Oh, but I can do this one right away. Maybe I should have gotten rid of that one at the same time. Again, you can overpay for contracts if you want. It could be a struggle if I'm just trying to get 1 of each. I could just throw away the extra vase, and then if I end up getting all these, or I buy them 1 at a time, I get this for free. I take a coin, this slides down. Oh, I can spend 0 and 1 to get these 2. Now I have enough for this one and enough for this one. I can do this all at once, but I'm not moving. Moving is not necessarily good or bad. It all depends on what is available on the tracks based on what you are trying to complete. You have the crystals. They count as a wild resource. They can be anything. If you have a double crystal, then these must be the same thing. So you are competing against other people because whenever you buy something, if I am here buying this lone piece of tuna to try to fulfill this contract, well, at the end of my turn, this is going to slide down and now it is free. So if someone is behind me here, they can move down and now they get this for free, whereas previously it would have cost them more. Everything you do is going to adjust what is available to everyone else. You are racing down to the end, or possibly going slowly, completing contracts on the way, going back up at the end, buying pearls. As pearls are bought, they slide down as well. So instead of 7, this one now cost only 4, getting much cheaper. Maybe it's worth it to save for this rather than work towards this, but it all depends on what other people are doing. And there's a quick overview of Whale Riders, which I played twice so far on an advanced copy from Grail Games, once with 2 players and once with 3. I'd love to try the 4, 5, or 6 player game, but given the state of the world right now, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. Mostly I want to try that because Knizia has an incredible ability to create different gameplay sensations with the same rules, based purely on the different number of players in the game. And I think, for example, of Medici, which goes from 2 to 6 players. I have not tried it with 2, but I've done it with 3, 4, 5, and 6. And the 3-player game is incredibly different from the 6-player game, just based on the competition for what's out there, and you have to play very differently with different player counts. I would imagine that is the same case with Whale Riders. You make small adjustments to the game based on the player count, adjusting the number of storm tiles that are in the bag, and I guess that adds more competition for things where you're going to create dead spots at the different ports. You'll have slightly more dead spots with fewer players, so it sort of mimics the interaction of other players where you're creating more of a challenge in order to get to certain things. But with more players, you're going to have more flow through different ports, so you're going to have things cycle differently, so you have to strike at certain points in order to get what you really need, or maybe you rush down to the end of the board in order to have something to yourself, and I'm just going to take a coin and then buy the 0 thing, take a coin, buy the 0, or buy the 0 and 1 and just pile up what's there, or hang back when other people move on. And of course, people are then going to cross back and forth once they have their return trip home, and you'll have more competition that way for different things. You try to find your space in order to complete what you're working on at the time. But you can see what other people are picking up as well. Maybe someone just cares about the pearls, they're just buying that directly, or they're focusing on one type of good, and you want to take that away from them to try to complete something of yourself. But maybe you're not even working on something right now, you're just looking at things for the future, because there's lots of other contracts in the game. This one just needs 10 of anything. So sure, you're collecting shells or kelp, but I'm just going to take that away from you. Hopefully I hurt you in the process, but I got 3 kelp to apply to this, or this big one as well. It's worth a lot of pearls when you get it, so it's something that makes the big tiles worth grabbing. Although then, of course, you've got the other contracts that make the small one worth grabbing, and things are going to change value just based on what contracts you have available to you and just where things are on the board. Not every 0 purchase tile is going to be worthwhile. Otherwise, you would just sit in the same port and just cycle through the same thing over and over again. Everything fluctuates and changes based on what other people are doing and what you have available to you. In the 2 games that we've had so far, the winning score in both has been in the low 30s, with the margin of victory around 5, so roughly 1 contract, maybe contract and a half. A few finishing pearls are not. So they've been fairly close, the 2 games that we played, and it's interesting just to see the competition and how people have tried different ways, where one was just trying to specialize only on buying pearls whenever they came up and did a little focus on contracts, and someone else did mostly contracts, just filtering through and throwing things away and trying to get big contracts, saving up for everything at once. There's different styles that are available to you to play, and how you interact with other players is going to create the challenge of the game. And that's really what I love about Knizia, is just it is the direct interaction with other people and how you are affecting each other and playing together. And the games feel very different when you're playing with different people with different play styles. It's a great skill to have, and I'm continually impressed with what he comes out with. Even 30 years on, it may feel like he's doing the same thing over and over again. And in some ways, Whale Riders is a very basic game. I'm going to collect stuff, and I sell stuff for points. Sure, it's all very straightforward. It's familiar, and yet it's also different, and it feels like if this were your first or only exposure to Knizia, you get a great sense of what he's like, and then you play something else, and you'd be like, oh, this feels like it's the same thing, even though it's different. It's the same and the different coming together that he does over and over again, different ways. It's remarkable to see. So I'm excited to play more Whale Riders, although possibly not with this copy of the game, just with a produced copy when it comes out, because somehow the production of this mock-up copy created a lot of weird ash on the tiles. So if you take the tiles and you're handling them in the bag and running your fingers over them, see if I can do this now. I think finally it's all wearing off. You just get this ash all over your hands from the tiles. So I was handling all the tiles in the games we played just so other people wouldn't get their hands dirty. I am happy to get my hands dirty in order to play a Reiner Knizia game. Seems like a tagline of sort that it should possibly be used in the future. There is also a Whale Riders the card game, which I imagine is a similar system, kind of the way that Knizia, of course, has had Medici the card game, and now Medici the dice game, and Samurai the card game, and Tigris Euphrates the card game, and all sorts of other spin-offs where he takes some core idea. This idea, I imagine, moving, travel, acquiring things, fluctuating prices as you go, setting up other people based on your movement, because of course as I buy things, other things are going to come down and be cheaper for the other people who are coming behind me. I have to be wary of that. You have to be aware of what other people are doing and try not to give things away, although of course you also have to focus on yourself at the same time you watch other people. Is a requirement. You can't just have blinders on and worry only about yourself, but it's sort of keeping an eye on everyone, what they're doing, where they're going, where they're focusing on, what the clock of the game is like, because the game ends when all the pearls are gone at the top of the board. If no one is moving towards the top, then you can focus on what you're doing, or maybe you want to move up quickly and become the clock that is going to force the end of the game if you think you're in a good position to end it. Otherwise, you stay back, you harvest more and try to work on contracts. It all depends on what everyone else is doing. Again, the hallmark of a good Knizia game design, which is almost the hallmark of a Knizia design, because they're pretty much all good, everything that I played.